I think some of the biggest challenges we face today when it comes to personal productivity and also how we manage stress is distractions. So in this video, I want to share a couple of tips on how I try to deal with that in my own life. If you're new here, my name is Jarle, and on Early Owl, we learn how to align our attention with our intentions. I feel like I talk about this a lot, but I think with a lot of these types of things, there is the obvious cost and then there's the hidden cost, where the obvious cost is like, okay, you get distracted, you spend your time on something else and you kind of jump between things and that's bad. But then there's the hidden cost, which is something like attention residue or the cost of context switching, which is something that is very much there, but it is kind of less tangible and less like specific. So we kind of just dismiss it. Like I read some study which said something like, okay, if you're focusing on one task and then you check an email or you do something else and then you get back to the other task, then disregarding the time you spent on the other task, it takes you 23 minutes to kind of get back to speed on what you're focusing on. And 23 minutes for like a small distraction sounds completely insane. And I don't know how they measured it or how they got that result. But I do think the actual impact these types of distractions have on us is actually insane, and we just kind of don't fully appreciate it. Like I know for me at least, it is so easy to have days or even weeks where I've been like super busy and I've like been super focused and just doing things all the time. But at the end of the day, when I kind of look back at what actually happened, I almost got nothing of value done. It was just like a little bit here, a little bit there, and then just how do I do this? But then before I actually completed that, I'm like, okay, but wait, how do I do that? And then you just kind of are spinning your wheels in terms of being busy without making any progress. So the first and most important thing I do is to minimize any sort of notification that can reach into my day. So I do have a smartphone, but it is always on do not disturb, so it doesn't vibrate, it doesn't make sounds. And I've also turned off these little lights that kind of blink on when you have a new message. And similarly, the new messages don't show up in like the notification tab on the phone. So the only way I see if I have new messages or new emails or anything like that is if I go into that service and check it. I do have a dumb phone as well, which is where my main SIM card is with my phone number in it. And that is not on silent. So if there's like an emergency at work, or if someone really needs to reach me, or there's like a delivery at the door or something like that, they can reach this phone and kind of penetrate through my bubble of no notifications and be able to reach me. The same applies to my computer where I set it up. So like there's no programs that can send notifications up in the corner that I have new emails or anything like that. At most, I will see like this little red dot down in the icon bar, but I try to close those programs if I'm not actively using them. Self-exclusion is something I use quite a lot in my day-to-day. I've talked about it in a previous video about how to break bad habits, but this is basically using something like cold turkey to block access to things like email or Reddit or whatever. I think if you're doing something that is kind of difficult or frustrating, it is more helpful to have some sort of rigid self-exclusion rules in place. Because when you're kind of frustrated or bored, your mind is exceptionally good at coming up with excuses for why you suddenly need to check your email or why there's like this unpaid invoice that you suddenly have to do right now. Whereas if you block yourself out from those, then you don't have the option to act on these impulses. It can also be useful to have some like softer exclusions, like when I go to bed, I put my phone outside of my bedroom so I don't wake up and use it the first thing in the morning. Another thing I know some people do is if they have a specific task they need to focus on, they only bring with them what they need for that specific task and go to like a coffee shop or a park or something like that. And then they don't have the option to indulge in the easy distractions that are normally always available. I think one of the main reasons I don't do this is because my handwriting is so horrible, so I can't write anything by hand. But I think it's definitely something that a lot of people use to their benefit. I try to be very deliberate about forcing some distraction-free time into my life. So one thing I talk about a lot is I go on regular breaks where I will go on walks or do stretching or anything like that, where I don't have my phone with me and there's no music or anything like that. I just kind of let my mind be. Something else I try to do, this is kind of a house rule, which I try to enforce all of the time, but some periods I fall off it. But whenever I am doing it, I'm always appreciative of it, is whenever I decide I want to watch a show or play a game or anything like that, The general way of how I want to do it is that I have it full screen on my TV without my computer nearby, without my phone nearby. So I'm not like halfway playing the game or watching the thing and halfway surfing on Reddit or texting on my phone or whatever. I'm giving my full attention to whatever I'm watching. And I find that I feel a lot better about like the time spent. Like I get much more enjoyment out of whatever I'm doing when I give it my full attention. And also, if I don't want to give something my full attention, then I probably don't want to be watching that thing anyway. Another thing, which is just like a tiny thing that I'm trying to incorporate a bit more into my life now, which I read in some book somewhere, which I can't remember right now. Obviously, or well, I hope this is obvious to everyone. And if it's not, I'm now making it obvious to you. You should never use your phone when you're like with someone and you're kind of hanging out with them. But I noticed what I would always do if I'm like with someone out for a dinner or something and they go to the bathroom, that I would just instinctively go for my phone and use it until they come back. But what I started to do now is just not do that and just kind of sit with myself and my thoughts and kind of let the enjoyment and the appreciation of the interaction sink in, instead of just always going for my phone whenever there's like a dull moment. And I think it just makes me appreciate, as I said, the interactions more and makes me more focused on what is going on. Even if you have all your notifications and everything on lockdown now, there's always going to be some distracting tasks you have to deal with. So I think when you have to deal with those, things like email or Slack messages, you should try to be very deliberate about the time you have set off to do them, and kind of batch them instead of just having them come in and deal with them one by one. Exactly how you approach this depends a lot on how necessary it is for whatever you're doing to always be on call. But I think most people overestimate how important it is for them to kind of always respond to emails within 5 to 10 minutes and underestimate the benefits they could get from like chunking this in. Even if you're chunking it into half an hour of email, half an hour off email, which is like not great, but for some people that might be what they have to do. But even if you're doing that, I think people still underestimate how much they could benefit from just having some time set off where there's no distractions and they're able to focus fully on like one specific thing. The final tip is I think you want to try to optimize your days around how these distractions kind of impact your mind. So in the morning, you want to have some time before anything has kind of seeped in from the outside where you're able to focus on some difficult or important tasks. Because as soon as you open the floodgates, like as soon as you check your email or as soon as you open Slack, you have no idea what's going to be in there and you have no idea how that's going to impact you. But if you're able to set off like a few hours or even just 30 minutes from the start of your day before you let any other distractions get into your bubble, and you can use that time to focus on something you know is important, that you know you have to do from the days before, then that can be a significant boost to kind of moving important projects forward. Even if you manage to set up the same amount of time at some other point in the day, then you're still going to have all the other things that is going on in your mind, and it's going to make you worse at the thing you were trying to focus at in the morning. And this is not just like, oh, there's a fire at work and I need to deal with it. It could also be just opening Reddit and like seeing some political catastrophe that you feel emotionally attached to, or it could be any million sort of things. You just want some time where none of this bullshit comes into your zone and you can just focus on what you decided was important the day before. And then after you've done some time of that, then you can open the floodgates. And at the other end of the day, I think it's important to have clear shutdown routines where at a specific point in your day, you kind of check everything you need to do and make sure there's like nothing else you have to deal with. And after that, you completely shut down emails, you completely shut down Slack or anything else that could reach you from the outside world that might distract you or stress you out from what you want to do. For some people in some positions, they might have to be available. And in those cases, you should use something like I do. As I mentioned, you have a phone that is not connected to your email and it is not connected to instant messaging services. And if someone really needs to reach you, they can call you on that phone. Okay, so that's my thoughts on distractions and how I try to deal with them. I will link to a video here about how to kind of improve your focus using something called FocusMate, which is pretty cool. And hopefully you watched this video just by going to YouTube in your own time and not being pulled into it by some notification that popped up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Wednesday.